Canada's unemployment rate in August climbs to a 9-year high outside of the early pandemic days. Remember those days? Remember the good old days when you got laid off and, the reason that they told you it was because of a virus? We're kind of out of the pandemic. What's the excuse this time?
Disrupted America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen. So there's some glooming statistics, ladies and gentlemen, on the state of the affairs of this country. Some numbers for people to chew on. And while you're being told that everything's fine, go back to your homes, go back to your lifestyle, keep continuing to complain that Sydney Sweeting is somehow racist. I mean, come on. The only thing offensive from that jean commercial is the price of those jeans. There's a reason why most of us shop thrift stores. Or you could shop at the merch store and get this t-shirt, ladies and gentlemen. Kitz Corner merchandise store. You can help support the channel and wear your support. But it doesn't hide from the fact that Canada is losing its battle. Canada is losing its battle. So this is from the Globe and Mail stating that Canada's unemployment rate in August climbs to a 9-year high outside of the early pandemic days. Remember those days? Remember the good old days when you got laid off and, the reason that they told you it was because of a virus? The illnesses are coming, so that's why you got to be laid off and go back to your homes and go pound sand. At least back then they gave you kind of a reason. Now we're, 5 years out of 2020. We're kind of out of the pandemic. What's the excuse this time? Because they can't really say that we're firing you or laying you off or cutting back because pandemic. But they'll tell you that it's America's fault or Trump's fault or Elon or RFK, whatever the case may be. And continue to tell you to, point your elbows up. But it doesn't hide the reality that things are not looking good, folks. Things are not looking good. So, does the Canadian and American job markets effectively stalled in late summer as employers struggled with the prohibitive costs of U.S. tariffs, contributing to a bout of weakness that will likely force both countries' central banks to resume cutting interest rates in short order. Canada shed 66,000 positions in August, and the unemployment rate rose to 7.1%. It's now over 7%, folks. Over 7%. It was kind of near, high 6. We weren't getting as close to 7, but now it's more and more increasing. The highest level it's been since 2016. Apart from early pandemic years, Statistics Canada said Friday in a report. Meanwhile, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that the U.S. economy added 22,000 jobs last month, well below the 75,000 that economists expected to see. And we're going to get to the American economy because I know people are going to jump on and say, see, this is why America's kicking ass right now. This is why Canadians want to go right to America. America should occupy Canada and kick their asses. Well, the sad reality is that America's not doing well either. I would say the entire West is collapsing. Not just Canada, not just individual provinces, but the entire Western Empire is collapsing within. And you're going to see why. The Canadian labor market has been soft for years, first because of rising interest rates that slowed the economy, and lately because U.S. President Donald Trump's trade war has chilled hiring and investment plans. But in the U.S., the shift has been more abrupt. Last year, the country added an average of 167,000 positions per month. That slowed to an average of 27,000 jobs over the last 4 months. On earning calls and in surveys, American companies say they're taking a big financial hit from the Trump administration's onerous and erratic tariff policies. As a result, economists and investors expect central banks to offer some immediate rate relief to prop up their economies. So you can see there's kind of a graph there. They could show you the rise of the unemployment. There's the big jump with COVID. when they told people to, bunker down, that a virus was coming, you're going to get laid off. So go home, go lock yourself in your room. We're going to somewhat cover you, even though that was kind of falsehood that they were going to provide for you, completely made up. Even with all that, that was the time, and I've stated this before, that was the time that as people were hunkering down during a pandemic, that the immigration minister under Justin Trudeau, Mark Miller, even explained that they had to bring in more migrant workers at that time to avoid a recession. So think about that, folks. Think about that, folks. That the highest point of temporary foreign workers, the highest point of cheap labor, the amount of migrants being poured into this country was at the height of the pandemic, when everybody else was told to bunker down, that you're going to lose your job, you're going to be laid off temporarily, we got to shut things down, we got to halt production, your mom and pop restaurants or your diners or your little tiny boutique shops, they got to be shut down because of how deadly this pandemic is. At the same time, they're bringing in mass migration to replace you. Because if we don't, the economy is going to collapse. That's what Mark Miller, the immigration minister under Justin Trudeau, stated. And we're still continuing to do that, folks. We're still continuing to do that, laying off more and more Canadians to bring in temporary foreign workers, replace them, being the Canadian workers, with cheap labor, exploiting those people for profit making, that, a lot of these large corporations and multinational investment firms that bought out places like Tim Hortons, they're exploiting the process. And it's only going to get worse because now, congratulations, you're going to be replaced by a robot. So this is all part of the transition. This is all part of the transition to slowly die off the actual working class, transition it to cheap labor until the point that everything becomes automated or AI, and transition the cheap labor into automation. And then who are we going to blame? Are you going to blame the immigrants for being replaced by a robot? Who do we blame then? Who do we blame then? That's why I don't put the blame on the immigrants themselves, because they're part of the exploitation process. But anyway, that's a different conversation to have. The ugly unemployment numbers released today should be enough to push those who had been not in the cut camp to reassess their outlooks for the Bank of Canada, said Royce Mendez, head of macro strategy of Desjardins Securities, in a client note. Interest rate swaps with captured market expectations of monetary policy, a pricing in a 90% chance that the central bank trims its benchmark rate by quarter percentage point on September 17th, according to LSEG data. The bank has been on pause since March, leaving its overnight interest rate at 2.75%. The Federal Reserve is considered even more of a certainty to lower interest rates. Investors fully expect the Fed, which has been on pause since December 2024, amid concerns about sticky inflation, to resume cutting rates on September 17th based on market implied odds. With the U.S. labor markets in distress, this raises the risk of a harder landing for consumer spending and the economy in the months ahead, said Scott Anderson, chief U.S. economist at the Bank of Montreal, in a client note. But this also provides all the necessary ingredients for the Fed to resume cutting rates, he wrote. The Stats Can report showed that Ontario recorded the largest number of job losses, with 26,000 in August, followed by British Columbia, which lost 16,000. Much like in previous months, the highest unemployment rates in Ontario were concentrated in manufacturing hubs. Windsor had an unemployment rate of 11.1% in August compared to 9.1% in January. Before the start of the trade war, Oshawa's unemployment rate climbed to 9% in August from 8.2% in January. Toronto's unemployment rate stood at 8.9%, relatively unchanged since the beginning of the year. The data also suggests a more concerning trend that employment decreases have spread beyond industries directly hit by tariffs to the broader services sector. The professional and scientific industry saw employment drop by 26,000 jobs last month. The August numbers are the clearest signal that the job market has stalled, wrote Brendan Brennard, senior economist at the job search company Indeed Canada, in a note on Friday. Mr. Bernard said the trade war has delivered shocks to the Canadian labor market in certain industries and regions. He pointed out that it's also meant people who were already unemployed are struggling to find work given a lack of job vacancies to fill. So this is not good, folks. This is not good. And I hope people that still continue to chant elbows up and defend Mark Carney, he's trying his best. That's what I heard people say. He's trying his best, okay? It's hard. It's hard. He's trying his best. I hope people chew on these statistics. I hope people sink this in. That Mark Carney's been in office now for a few months, and things are not looking up. Things are not looking promising. And as months go on, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. Now, Globe and Mail specifically goes after the tariffs as part of the reason. And it may be the case. I'm not, disagreeing that tariffs are not responsible for the job losses, but they're not the only case. They're not the only case. And I'm not an economist. I'm not a chief financier. I'm not, embedded to, state exactly why unemployment is continuing to skyrocket in the country. But there's a lot of different instances that I could point out that have direct relation to this situation. And one of them being, as Ryan Williams, this guy points out, says Canadian job openings, so actual, job placements, have fallen by half since 2022, down to 492,000 in June of 2025. At the same time, 246,000 new permanent residents arrived this year, and youth unemployment hit 14.6%, the highest since 2010. That's right, youth unemployment. All the people that are looking for those summer jobs to make a little money in between school, or maybe you're one of those people that just graduated from college, or maybe you're trying to save up so you can get a semester of college so you can move on and, get better ahead in your life. They're the ones being mostly discouraged. And because a lot of these corporations, a lot of these industries are scabbing for cheap labor. And they're exploiting the temporary foreign worker program to scout out cheap labor, which is why I think, Pierre Poilievre stating that we need to investigate this, that we need to cut the loopholes, is such a remarkable statement for any politician to state that, because we never heard any politician, not on the conservative side, not even not on the liberal side, not on the NDP, nobody's really mentioned about it. And just how insane the situation is, how insane the exploitation is, that we're piling in more and more migrants to basically replace Canadian workers so that investment firms and multinational corporations can save a few pennies in labor costs. And these are companies that have huge amounts of profits. Tim Hortons, Loblaws, you name it. These are major companies that are making record profits. I'm sure they can afford to pay someone a decent wage. I'm sure they're able to afford to hire a Canadian teenager, for whatever the minimum wage is in your province. I'm sure that is possible. But, of course, that's not going to happen when Mark Carney, who is the private equity prime minister, that's what I'm now calling him, because he literally came from a private equity firm, and he's hollowing out the country like it's liquidation sale. So Mark Carney is not going to do anything about it, but instead Mark Carney is going to defend company interest to hire more scab labor. So as Mark Nixon points out, Canada's lost over 100,000 plus jobs. 100,000 plus jobs in 2 months. 48 hours ago, Mark Carney said we need more temporary foreign workers. As Canadian unemployment is skyrocketing, he is demanding more migrants be poured into the country to replace them. That's not Mark Carney interested in you. That's not the Canadian interest. That's corporate interest. That's Brookfield interest. And here's him announcing that he's on the side of the corporate estate to bring in more temporary foreign workers. Watch this.
Issue is access to temporary foreign workers. OK? Et pour le moment, c'est une des grandes demandes du gouvernement du Québec et c'est une des grandes demandes des entreprises québécoises. Il faut garder ce programme, pas éliminer ce programme. Alors, mais issue is access to temporary.
So, I know part of that was in French, but what he said there, I showed the full video before, is Mark Carney said he went and talked with all these industries. He went to talk to a lot of business entrepreneurs across the country, and he said that there's two worries for a lot of these businesses. Number one is the tariffs, and the second one is access to temporary foreign workers. Those are the two biggest things that apparently Canadian businesses are worried about. Is the tariff trade war between him and Donald Trump, which he's completely failed. Mark Carney has failed to negotiate, failed to interact with Donald Trump. We don't know exactly where we're sitting on this trade negotiation. It's an absolute circus. And the second is how companies are exploiting the temporary foreign worker program by falsifying documents saying that they can't hire Canadian workers. They can't find anyone that could work, apparently. They can't find someone to hire at $36 an hour to work at Booster Juice or Subway or Tim Hortons. What Canadian would turn that down? I guess they're all lazy that they don't want to work for $36 an hour. Okay, I guess we got to call Mark Carney and tell him to pour in more migrants who won't be paid $36 an hour. That's for certain. You're not going to be paid that wage. That's a gimmick to sucker people in, to sucker in migrants. And once they get employed by these companies, they exploit them because they're migrants, because they're not Canadian citizens. They don't have to pay them that wage. They can exploit them for cheaper labor. They cut back labor costs on top of being subsidized by the government. So this is a big reason why unemployment is skyrocketing. And thank God for Pierre Poilievre and Michelle Rampal for mentioning about this, for being the only two I've seen in the Canadian Parliament to bother to mention this as a problematic situation. Why is unemployment skyrocketing as we're pouring in more and more migrants? Why are we pouring in more migrants when Canadians are desperate and hungry for work? And if you pay someone a decent wage, people will work in any position. You treat them with fairness and respect and treat them like an actual employee, people will work anywhere. People will work anywhere. So it's not that, Gen Z is lazy or no one wants to work in these positions or, oh, no one wants to flip burgers. So that's why we got to get somebody outside the country who barely speaks English, who doesn't have any residency, doesn't have any qualifications for that position to replace you with. It's unbelievable, folks. It's unbelievable. And we showed this article before, but I just want to highlight again, we were warned about this. We were warned about this months ago. This is from May 26th of this year. This is from the Financial Post. And this we talked about this article. So TD TD Bank, one of the economists there, warned people and warned the federal government that you have to change things around. You have to change things around, or you're going to have 100,000 jobs will be lost in a looming recession. Most economists say the downturn has already begun. We've already stated this. That the recession is happening. The recession is now. It's not looming. It's not coming. It's happening right now. And why is Mark Carney, the prime minister, who pretends that he has your back by chanting elbows up and telling you to buy Canadian, why is he going around you to replace the Canadian workforce with cheap labor? And why is he ignoring damning calls like this? Why is he ignoring these predictions that have now become true? That TD was right. The TD economist was right. The fear is real. Predicting 100,000 jobs will be lost in a looming recession, which is right now. Right now. And as I stated, it's not just here in Canada. This is in the United States. This is from CNN. America's job market flashes yet another warning sign about the economy. And they said, labor market deterioration, just 22,000 jobs were added in August, dramatically lower than economists' expectations for 76,500 new roles, calling a negative job growth. For the first time in nearly 4 years, the economy lost jobs with a decline of 13,000 positions in June. The joblessness rate rose to 4.3%, the highest level it's been since 2021. So, elbows up is not working in Canada. Donald Trump's Make America Great Again isn't working for Americans. It seems like the West is on a downhill turn for the worse, folks. And again, I'm not an economist. I can't, dissect exactly why we're losing this many jobs. I can just point out some varying factors that relate to the situation, like the temporary foreign worker program, the tariff, trade war debacle between Mark Carney and Donald Trump. That's obviously not helping. But there's also something to add to this about the future about labor. And this is a conversation that I feel like we should have had, 10 years ago. And people have warned about this. People have predicted this. There's now, compilations of videos of people, warning about how there was going to be this generative takeover of robotics and AI. And this is kind of daunting to see this. So Donald Trump had a dinner with the tech bros. Kind of had like a tech bro circle jerk here. And David Icke points out, he states, I said that Trump was put into power to front up the AI oligarch takeover of society with artificial intelligence. And that's exactly what he's doing, with the oligarchs driving the policy and direction. Here are many at the White House dinner yesterday, including Trump AI czar David Sachs, Meta founder Mark Zuckerberg, Apple CEO Tim Cook, Microsoft founder Bill Gates. Bill Gates. I thought this guy was supposed to be the direct enemy of MAGA. I thought everyone was supposed to be angry about him. I thought we're supposed to be furious about him. Where's Alex Jones going on saying, oh, that turkey neck, Bill Gates is having dinner with Donald Trump. How dare the two of them interact? OpenAI founder Sam Altman, Google CEO Sundar Pichai, and Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. Now, that's Nadella with a D instead of Nutella, which is a spread that people put on toast. Clear your mind of all the diversions, and this is the thrust of the whole world Trump regime, installing the AI control system on every level. And that is exactly the point. That's exactly the point, which is why I have stated my philosophy of all this, not only to cause more chaos on the streets, why we're pouring in more migrants and, resorting to cheap labor and so on and so forth, but also the fact that the migrants are part of the transition to completely eradicate the workforce, the work population, because now that automation is booming, the AI industry is flooding with millions of dollars thanks to government subsidies, because Trump gave them multi-million-dollar checks to flourish the AI markets to start replacing jobs. So the idea that Trump was going to be on the side of the job market and creating these tariffs because, if we create tariffs, that means that companies are going to pour back into America and they're going to open up and we're going to create jobs. That was a complete falsehood. That was completely false. And the reason I know it's completely false is because the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, even stated on television that, hey, even if we bring these companies back to America, it's going to be automated. AI was going to take over no matter what. So there's not really a point if a shop opens up in Akron, Ohio, or in Dubai. It doesn't even matter where it's located. You're going to be replaced. You're going to be replaced. And that's what this little powwow is all about. How do we take control of the population? How do we use our robotics and logistics to completely go after the working class population? How do we do that as credent billionaires? So here's Donald Trump thanking all the tech CEOs in this circle jerk while they're discussing ways to completely destroy and put you in a dystopian state.
Mark, would you like to say a few words about the company?
Well, thanks for hosting us. And this is quite a group to get together.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor to work here at the White House and to work for you.
Very grateful for your administration support.
We look forward to working together, and thanks for your leadership.
We're so grateful for that support.
Thank you so much, obviously, for bringing us all together and the policies that you have put in place. Thank you very much. And also, I wanted to thank Madam First Lady for hosting.
I want to thank you for including me this evening. It's incredible to be among everyone here, particularly you and the First Lady. I also want to thank you for helping American companies around the world. I want to thank the First Lady for focusing on education.
First of all,
I'm sorry, I couldn't help look at the woman across from Tim Cook there. She looks like she's in a hostage situation. Okay, blink twice, dear, if you're held against your will. Look at that. Look at that. How crazy that is.
For helping American companies around the world. I want to thank the First Lady for focusing on education.
First of all, to echo the comments of Tim and others, thank you so much for getting us all together, and thank you for being such a pro-business.
So there's Sam Altman, and I don't know much about this guy. But apparently what I've been hearing, and people have done better research than I have on, these tech ghouls, but Sam Altman has a very, very dark history. And what's been reported, one of the reasons he started getting into AI and kind of this track surveillance monitoring system is because he wants to cover up all of his heinous actions of the past. That, to me, kind of explains why, these tech nerds are so enthusiastic about platforms like this. Even though they all know that AI, when left in the hands of these nefarious people, is going to be catastrophically damaging to society. The fact that it's replacing jobs, the fact that it's, sucking out the essence and creativity of human life. I did a whole Substack article about this, folks, about how AI, people like to rave that, it makes people more productive and you can ask it certain questions. It's like, Google on steroids. Oh, you can ask it certain things. It's wonderful. AI is just terrific. Be warned of who's behind the gears of controlling AI. Because as you're asking your phone questions or, talking to chat GPT about making schedules or whatnot and thinking that's so productive, they're recording all this data. They're recording all this data to put it in a central database to have full control, full display of all your information, all your vital information, so they can deceive against you. That's what's so daunting about this. That's what's so deceptive about this. So, people like Sam Altman or Larry Ellison of Oracle that are the top, top of the top of the billionaire escapade. I think Larry Ellison is second to Elon Musk, who Elon Musk isn't even here. Goes to show you how far the breakup went. Elon Musk isn't even in attendance to this. But what's so daunting is that, we know what's happening with Oracle. We know what's happening with Palantir. We know what's happening, all across the land, that this small circle of nefarious ghouls is going to dominate so much of our lives, so much of a society that is more devastating than the dark ages of civilization. You read about history, you read about the lords, you read about kings and queens and the hardships of peasant life. Imagine that on steroids now with robots being controlled and monitored and equipped by these ghouls. It's going to be hell, folks. It's going to be absolute hell. And I wish I could say that it's just sci-fi. I wish I could say that it's just, built up hokum, that it's just, me ranting. But this is the ultimate reality, folks, is that when you have the billionaire class like this gathered together to compliment each other about dominating the world and, having these products, having this AI technology, just pushed in to every aspect of our lives, is just absolutely crazy. And speaking of crazy, here is Bill Gates thanking Donald Trump. And again, I find this so hilarious that Bill Gates, who was, the biggest demon for a lot of the right-wingers out there, and I would say he's the biggest demon because I know exactly who Bill Gates is. And I just find it so crazy that people are okay now to allow Bill Gates and Donald Trump to be in the same room congratulating each other when we know how heinous a person like Bill Gates is. While they're screaming about RFK Jr. and how awful he is to the vaccine agenda, people don't realize that this evil, lurking criminal, Bill Gates, is getting a pat on the back by Donald Trump himself. That's what makes this so hilarious. So let's hear what Bill Gates had to say.
Well, I'm in the second phase of my career, giving away all the wonderful money that Satya's good work has helped multiply a lot. But I think the thing...
Whoa. He said he's giving away his money? Whoa! That's a first. A billionaire giving away his money. Wow. I wonder who he's donating to. Is it going to all the victims that he jabbed up in Africa and then caused an outbreak of certain diseases that were manufactured in parts? Is it compensation for those individuals? Is it compensation for the children that he mutilated through gene therapy? Is that the money he's giving away? Who's he giving the money to? Who's he giving the money to? Oh, he's such a philanthropist. He's such a nice guy. Come on. He has glasses. He wears sweater vests. You can't be mad at a geek. There's more.
that ties my first career that I still spend some time on because AI is so phenomenal. And my second career is innovation, innovating in health in areas like vaccines or gene editing. And the president and I are talking about taking.
Just to state this, anytime you hear Bill Gates or Larry Ellison or any one of these tech billionaires talk about innovation, like it's some sort of, masterful thing, like, oh, we're innovating so much. That is literally a code word for you that you're about to get ass raped by someone like Bill Gates. Anytime they mention about innovation, that usually means that it's dark, it's bleak, and it's used to destroy you. That's what they mean by innovation. Because they're not innovating for good. They're not innovating for, prosperity of human life. A man who barely finished college, doesn't know how to program, has no skills in agriculture, yet is the largest owner of farmland in America, has no medical background, no medical license, which is illegal in all 50 states to preach and practice medicine without a certificated license. And he's talking about innovation. Oh, we're innovating. Innovating new vaccines. Innovating gene editing. That's so great. That's so profound. Wow. I should feel so happy that our tax dollars are subsidizing this. I should feel so happy and giddy that while people are going broke and starving and unemployment skyrocketing, that Bill Gates is innovating. Good for him.
American innovation to the next level to cure and even eradicate some of these diseases. He mentioned polio, which is one that we're close. We don't need new science on that one. For some like HIV and sickle cell, we do need new science, but the U.S.
So there you go. That's Bill Gates there saying, oh, we don't need new science. We're, cracking down on polio. We're cracking down on polio by giving people more jabs. We don't need any more science. Trust the science. That's what he's saying there. Trust the science. We don't need to question it. We don't need to look into it. Just trust us. My 20-to-1 investment depends on it. That's what he did during COVID. He invested a huge amount of money in vaccines on the patents, got massively rich off it, and then when he pulled out of the market, that's when he decided, oh, by the way, the vaccines aren't exactly effective. That's what Bill Gates said. I can tell you that's very safe and effective according to YouTube standards, but I'm just reiterating what Bill Gates said after he pulled out his money. That's what a scumbag Bill Gates is. That's what kind of scum, putrid person Bill Gates is. And he's having dinner with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's congratulating them. Congratulating them.
Has the seeds that in the same way that Warp Speed took those seeds and put them together, I think something fantastic can be done. AI for our foundation is that we want a doctor for everyone in Africa through AI. We want farmers to have incredible advice and, kids to have a chance to learn. So the work being done by the people at this table.
All areas in which when Bill Gates puts his freaking fingers on, makes it worse. Bill Gates that told people that, hey, you got to lock your kids away from school because of the coronavirus and put them onto online learning. Kids fell behind when it came to an education. So him saying that, oh, we're innovating AI technology to revolutionize learning for kids. It's not good for your children. It's good for him. It's good for his pocketbooks, but it's not good for your kids. Just like the farmers. This is a guy who doesn't believe trees are necessary to be on Earth. Hey, all this carbon that's in the atmosphere, we should do something about it. Let's not plant trees. Let's not plant crops. Let's not do basic biology that is the most natural order process to remove the carbon out of the atmosphere and provide oxygen, which is necessary for all human life. Let's not do that. According to Bill Gates. This guy is scum of the scum. And it is just amazing that at the same time, when everybody at Congress is screaming at RFK Jr. about how this man is going to take away your kids' access to vaccines. And oh my God, this guy fired everybody at the CDC for not complying by questioning the medicine. Oh my God, he's doing awful work to the medical board. Where are the Congress people screaming at Bill Gates? When is he going to have to testify to Congress? A man who has no background in medicine, who bought his way onto television to scold you to scold Americans and practically the entire world to be on board with big pharmaceutical agenda. When is that going to happen? I can probably say it's probably never going to happen now, thanks to this. Because, hey, he just thanked Trump for Operation Warp Speed. So I guess they're good friends now. We tried to silence them. We tried to censor him. We tried to kick him off social media platforms, but it's okay now because Trump kind of goes on board with the establishment. So yay! Make America somewhat establishment again. Yay! Good God, folks. Good freaking God. And just to remind people what this looks like, let me just restate a famous philosopher once said,
This country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
There you go, folks. The words from the master himself, George Carlin. But I would argue that even his statement of being a big club, it's getting smaller by the minute. Like a sphincter. Slowly just closing in. It's kind of being more and more tight-knit on who's allowed to be in this club. Especially more and more so that, hey, any, billionaire that now looks at what's happening in Gaza or Ukraine or being against the war and kind of says, I don't think it's really a good idea to slaughter humanity in these wars for, profit. I think we kind of need to move on from that. Yeah. It's kind of discouraging to the billionaire class. And they get kicked out of the club. So, there you go, folks. It's a tight-knit club. And that's why unemployment's skyrocketing. That's why education is so crappy. That's why healthcare is falling apart. That's why everything is getting worse. Because they don't want you. They couldn't care less about you. None of these people like you. Period. So, I've said this before. I'll say it again. Don't be one of these idiots that kiss up to whatever political establishment. Don't think that Donald Trump's on your side or Mark Carney's on your side or even Pierre Poilievre's on your side. Even though I stated that Pierre Poilievre was right about the temporary foreign worker program, it doesn't mean I adore him like a god or a hero that's going to save Canada, because they're not going to save Canada. Because they're bought. All these people are bought by the same owners. It's a tight-knit club, and you and I ain't in it. And they're going to make sure it's worse, it's shittier, but they're going to keep distracting you so that you're still obedient. So, keep going along with your daily lives as things are getting worse, or you can wake up to realize the reality of the situation and maybe do something about it.